For once, there is not a Canucks game on a day that I've got some planned floor hockey at the community center, so I'm not going to have to miss any Vancouver Canucks action to attend to my own hockey needs. But with that being said, we have ourselves a Canucks game tomorrow against the Calgary Flames. Very special game day indeed. It is going to be the Canucks Pride Night celebration. They've got a whole bunch of awesome stuff planned for the day, plus the amazing warm-up jerseys. It's going to be awesome to see. Cannot wait to see that tomorrow. But for today, what I wanted to do was focus on the Vancouver Canucks and the president of hockey operations, Jim Rutherford. Because earlier in the week, actually, no, not earlier in the week, yesterday, literally just yesterday, we had ourselves the season ticket members, what do you want to call it, a message? A letter? A note, I guess you could say, written by, or presumably written by, President of Hockey Operations Jim Rutherford himself. It was tweeted out to the public by Chester Meng. And by the way, yeah, you probably know who Chester Meng is, Senior Vice President at Stratton Oakmont, planning on becoming one of the top brokers in his firm next year. And he's not going to get there by being wrong, Stanley. But anyways, he tweeted out the letter to season ticket holders, and this has a lot of interesting information in it, both in terms of what it says, but also in what it doesn't say. Could there be some sort of foreshadowing to what is going to happen in the future because of what was written about here? Who knows? But let's go out there and read Rutherford's message to season ticket holders. By the way, I'm not a season ticket holder, so I don't know if it means that I'm like, I don't know, doing something wrong by reading this out or putting it on YouTube, because I'm sure, you know, I see my demographics. I know that some of y'all are under the age of 18, so I doubt that you're actually season ticket holders. But either way, this is what Rutherford went out there and said. To our season ticket members, on behalf of Canucks SNE's ownership, our hockey operations team, and our players, I want to thank our season ticket members and all of our fans for your continued support. We know how much this team means to you. The passion from the Canucks fan base is simply incredible and something we will never take for granted. This season has been difficult for all of us, especially for you, our fans. We had expectations going into this season that were not met. All of us share in your frustration. This team needs to get better, and we will get better. I came to Vancouver 15 months ago with a plan to build this team into a legitimate contender, one that can ultimately compete for the Stanley Cup. Even though this season did not go as well as we had hoped, our vision for this team has not changed. We're currently the 5th youngest team in the NHL. And we believe in our core of elite players. Pettersson, Hughes, Miller, and Demko are exceptional players who continue to elevate their game. We are equally excited about the emerging new players on our roster, which includes Kuzmenko, Mikheyev, Bear, and the recently acquired Filip Hronek. This is a terrific base to build upon. There is still much work to do to upgrade areas of our team. This includes being active in the college and European free agent markets, along with managing our cap space by using all options available to us. Okay, you know, I'm going to finish reading this before we get into individual thoughts, because there's a lot over here that I think is interesting. A big part of our development of this group will be the work of new head coach Rick Tocchet and his staff. We are already seeing improvements under Rick's leadership. He's implementing the style of hockey we want to see this group play and holding the players accountable. We have a unified vision that runs from Abbotsford in the AHL to the Canucks in the NHL. Coach Jeremy Colleton is doing exceptional work in Abbotsford and is in regular communication with Rick Tocchet on the development of our players. Our hockey development staff has also been highly strengthened by the addition of Henrik and Daniel Sedin. We are lucky to have 2 Hall of Famers working with our players in both Abbotsford and Vancouver. Overall, I'm proud of the hockey operations team we have put in place here. We have added bright and diverse minds to our management group over the past year in Patrick Alvin, Cami Granado, Emily Castonguay, Derek Clancy, along with Ryan Johnson and Stan Smeal. We have exceptional people working in our pro and amateur scouting departments. I'm confident in this group as we embark on upgrading our roster and selecting a top pick in this year's NHL Draft. We are excited for what we're building and always appreciate your support. Your passion and commitment are what drives this franchise. Together, we can show the rest of the league why Vancouver is the best place to play and, more importantly, the best place to win. Jim Rutherford, President of Hockey Operations. Now, pause just before we get into that. What can the fans do? I mean, he said he appreciates the support and everything, but what do you mean together we can show the rest of the league? Okay. Fan support, it's whatever. Let's go back over to the beginning of this entire letter and just read what the Canucks' vision statement appears to be. Based off of everything that Jim Rutherford is saying, this team, this management staff, they still want to win, and they want to get better soon. Now, he doesn't say soon particularly, but he does say he wants to build a Stanley Cup contender. Okay, that's fine. He then uses the 5th youngest team in the league argument to bring up how this team is still young and on the cusp of potentially breaking out. Noting the core players Petey, Hughes, Miller, and Demko is interesting because there's no Brock. Very, very intriguing part about that entire conversation. Even with the acquisitions of new guys like Kuzmenko, Mikheyev, Bear, and Hronek, no mention whatsoever of Tanner Pearson, no mention of Brock, no mention of Conor Garland, no mention of OEL, Myers. Okay, towards the end, he says, we want to manage our cap space using all available options to us. Whether or not that means a buyout, who knows? Whether or not that means termination, who knows? Whether that means a trade, whatever, kind of has to be one of any of these three, right? But Jim Rutherford is going out there and pretty much hinting that the Canucks and their desire to make more moves has not gone away. They still want to change this team up, they still want to manage their cap space, and based off of the wording of this letter, it appears the plan may be to try to do that without touching one of Petey, Hughes, Miller, Demko, Kuzmenko, Mikheyev, Bear, and or Filip Hronek. He says this is a terrific base to build upon. And that's kind of part of the argument that everybody has been talking about the past little while too. We even mentioned it in the video yesterday talking about Quinn Hughes, but this core is good. We know how good and talented this core is. It's just the supporting cast around them is not nearly adequate enough to even contend in a wildcard race. I mean, the Canucks are kind of contending right now in the wildcard race, but they're not really there because even if they win out, they're still not guaranteed to be making the playoffs. So this team is so talented when it comes to the main guys. Miller, again, over a point per game. Petey on pace for 100 points, knock on wood, he's able to get there. Quinn Hughes on pace for 80 points. Thatcher Demko has looked amazing ever since returning. He's been phenomenal. And they're really strong players, all of them. Even the new acquisitions. Ethan Bear, sure, aside the giveaways that he ends up making once in a while, he's still a pretty good option for this team. Filip Hronek, pretty good. You still have that Andrei Kuzmenko and the Ilya Mikheyevs of the world doing their thing too. It's just with money handed out to guys like OEL, Myers, Garland, Boeser, you're going to have to free up that salary cap space and use it to get more players that are effective for cheap. Like Dakota Joshua, like Niels Oman, like these guys that have been pretty good for the Canucks in the bottom half of this lineup. And with the way Rutherford is ironing everything out, it's apparent that that salary cap flexibility is still a desire of this team, which in and of itself is a good thing. I don't think it's impossible for the Vancouver Canucks to build a cup contending team in the short-term future, like within the next 3 years. It's just going to be so difficult because of all those contracts that have been handed out to guys like OEL and Myers, etc., the bending mistakes that have carried over into the next generation here. Sure, would it have been nice to see the team kind of go out there and try to get Connor Bedard after having that terrible start and losing out all those games? Yeah, it probably would have been, but still, having the success they've had with Hughes and Petey and Miller scoring all these points, it doesn't feel completely unjustified. It also is interesting how Rutherford notes in this letter that Rick Tocchet and his staff have been improving the team with his leadership and his style. It's all interesting, because for Bruce Boudreau, we all kind of knew that Boudreau wasn't really the guy that Rutherford and Allvin wanted from the get-go. Boudreau was just hired before, which is kind of why Rutherford and Allvin were forced to commit and stick around with him until the bad season of this year, and then he got fired. But yeah, Rick Tocchet was never really seen as a quote-unquote winning head coach, especially with his days in Arizona, but I'll admit the style's working here in Vancouver. It's looking pretty good. And so for Rutherford to take some time to write out this letter, just going over everything and talking about the team, talking about Tocchet and how it's been an improvement, it is interesting, but I also do think this could signal some changes along the way. No Boeser and Garland mentioned in the core piece. Okay, does that mean Boeser is out? They're talking about freeing up money using all options available. Does that mean an OEL buyout? Who really knows? They're also talking about the disappointment with the fans and everything. Okay, so what's the expectation for next year? You want to build a cup contender, right? You don't want to disappoint the fans? Okay, well, does that mean trying to go all out and try to make the wild card? Are we still doing that anything can happen if you get into the playoffs argument? I'm not really too sure. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Canucks and the letter from Jim Rutherford. What do you think this signals about the direction of the team heading into the next few years? I'm really interested in seeing the nuance in what your opinions are regarding this Canucks direction, but let me know your thoughts either way in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Juraj, and bye.